Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and we're going to be doing a classic clan boss tune-up today. I was approached, as you guys might know, I do offer account services on my website, and I was approached by Grim Reaper to help him rebuild his clan boss team, because he was doing, I think he was saying he was doing like a 4-key on Ultra Nightmare, maybe a 3-key, I think a 4-key though. But he really wanted to get to a 2-key Ultra Nightmare and a 1-key Nightmare team. And so I saw like that shouldn't be a problem. He's got the champions on his account. It's not the most, it's not like a crazy whale account, but he does have plenty of unkillable champions, right? Between Maneater and Demitha, there's lots of options there for him. And so I figured, yeah, this is going to be pretty breezy, pretty easy. We can do like a double Maneater team or a Myth Eater, right? With a Maneater and Demitha. Figured there were going to be some squads we could do. There's a Hellcath on the team, plenty of options. But as I got looking into it, I realized that he actually might be able to do one of the best teams that's available. And I figured it's not a bad time to kind of review this clan boss team and go over it slightly. And the team I'm talking about is going to be a Myth Fu team. But here's the thing, there's no Fushan on the account. How do we do this without a Fushan? Well, exact same team. We just need a different champion with the speed aura so we can make the speeds on this account. Now, this account is, the gear level is not like crazy high, right? So it's not like I really did need the speed aura, but you can actually build this team without a speed aura. Just the speed requirements are about 24 speed more than you would normally need. That can be pretty prohibitive for a lot of people out there. So with this one, I figured we go ahead, we rebuild it, and that's kind of what we ended up doing. So let me show you the champions that we're using and the approach. And I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to show this is the build I'm going to show you is actually one of the more common versions of this team that a lot of people probably just aren't as aware of. But it shows that you don't need always the specific champions that I'm showing. As long as you can bring in stuff that equates to what they're doing, that's what you're going to need. So let's go ahead and we'll jump in. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one that comes out. And of course, if you enjoyed today's music, we have that link down below in the pinned comment and description of this video, and you can use code DeadwoodJedi, save yourself 15%. And of course, if you want some account work, you don't like doing the work yourself, I'm more than happy to do it for you. My team is at the beck and call. Just visit my website, DeadwoodJedi.com. All right, so I already told you guys what we're doing is a Myth Fu team. That's basically using the aura of Fushan, Demitha, and a Seeker to make us an unkillable team. We're basically having Demitha running a 3-1 ratio. We have Eris in there for the speed buff as well as the cleanse ability. They're both running at a 3-1, allowing them to go through all their skills every turn and keeping us unkillable. And Seeker's giving us that turn meter boost so they can take those extra turns, right? And we're going to be using Kalvalax, who I think is one of the better options here as a speed aura champion. Now, there's a couple interesting things I've been noticing when doing this build. First off, Kalvalax is great because he puts out these poisons to start, but he only has like a 50% chance of putting a poison up every turn, so he's not a real like heavy duty poison champion. Generally going to want somebody else with him for that. And he does some really big hits, and he also has the ability on his A1 to extend the duration of poison debuffs. It's like a 55% chance, I think, unbooked. So it does allow you that if you can get poisons on the boss, he's a really good option to keep those poisons up there. Not perfect. It's not super all the time type of thing. He uses a lot more skills in his A1, and there's no counterattack, so he's not getting a bunch of extra A1 hits or anything. But that is something to kind of keep in mind, and it can be problematic with the team that you use. So you want to kind of be aware of that. Obviously, Seeker is going to be crucial for our turn meter boost. We've got our Geomancer in here, and he's going to be doing a lot of damage for us. Now, it is really important when using a champion like Kalvalax. He's green affinity. The only champion that cannot be stunned in this arrangement is Eris. So we have to have another champion of the same affinity if we're facing the strong affinity clan boss. So because Eris is red affinity, we need another red affinity champ when we face green affinity clan boss. Otherwise, the boss will target Eris, and that'll throw everything off. So what we want to make sure to do is bring in somebody that's red affinity And in this case, I think Geomancer is a great choice. I've seen teams with this exact same composition do well over 100 million damage on clan boss. We're not going to do quite that. Our gear's not there. You notice, actually, our Eris is only level 1. I literally just ranked it up and ascended her, geared her out, and because it's a block damage team, I don't really need to level her up for her to be effective, but that's obviously going to nerf a lot of the damage that she can do. And so, like, you can see, that's not a perfectly optimized team as yet. Getting to the speeds was really going to be the hard part, but I think we did a decent job with the damage healers. And then very last, of course, we have the Myth at nearly 300 speed, 299. And unfortunately with this, that's what we're going to need. Now, Kalvalax speed aura is only 19%. 19% is still a lot, but it's not the 24% we'd get from Fushan. So when you're trying to figure this out in the calculator, you just need to adjust the numbers up a little bit to figure it out. And the best way, actually, the best way to do this is when you go onto the website. Let's see if I can't pull this up for you guys. So here we have on the website the Myth Fu team, right? And you can see all the speeds and everything's laid out here as far as how it works. But down here at the bottom, you'll see both the variations that we have, as well as they're all links to the clan boss calculator, as well as the main one, right? And that's what this is here. Well, we have that 24% speed aura from from Fushan already in there. If we want to adjust this to the 19%, here's what we do. First off, we would change the aura. But before we do that, I want to look at the true speeds. So I want to see, okay, Demytha's true speed 314, 283, 210, 208, 190. So when I adjust this down, right, all I want to do then is get these true speeds back up to about where they were before. And I should be able to see exactly if this team can fall into sync or not. And that's all we're going to do. Right. And as you can see, now we are back in sync just by adjusting those up. So it's a pretty straightforward adjustment, right? I mean, we're losing 5% on the aura. That's about 5 speed for most of these champions. And so you can kind of just, figure that part out. And then you're just going to adjust accordingly. Now, that's all it takes. That's all it takes to do it on the website. And in the calculator, it's a very easy kind of switch. So as we come here, it is set up just to run full auto like any Myth Fu team. And it's a very nice squad. Now, we're using Geomancer in here, and Geomancer is really good for this. Now, one thing you'll notice, we do not have a decreased defense champion on this team. That's definitely a negative, and this is why a champion like Fushan is better, because he brings that. And he actually pairs pretty decently with the Geomancer. But Geomancer is going to be great. We get a lot of extra damage based on his passive ability, but remember that passive ability is based on the number of hits we take. And so because of that, Affinity Clan Boss is actually, he's going to be way more effective than a Void Affinity Clan Boss, right? When we did this, I did do a test run on Void, and we did about 50 million damage or so, maybe 55. I kind of ended the run a little bit early, but it was about a 55 million damage team. On this, I'm optimistic actually that we can get much closer to a 1 key, because he's going to be taking those hits from the affinity boss, and that's just going to ramp up his damage considerably. Of course, Kalvalax is bad affinity here, and that's always the issue when you're not facing Void. Someone is going to be bad affinity, and that can definitely impact our damage numbers overall. So it's going to be a little bit of a yin yang on that run, right? A little give and take. One of the other options you can do is you can always have a champion like Geomancer, or a Rosin is another really good option, or when you're facing Spirit Affinity, right? Because you need someone to take the stun instead of Eris. When you're facing any other affinity, including Void, you can bring in a different champion. And I actually did build up a Fane for this team. Now, Blue Affinity is a bad affinity for us, so I figured that wouldn't be a good showcase. But just so you understand, you can build in other DPS for that role. But anyway, as you're watching this, you're going to notice Kalvalax is going to do a ton of damage for us. Seeker's actually built decently well, so he should be doing decent damage also. Geomancer is going to be hitting very hard. And then pay attention when the boss hits, how much extra damage we get from Geomancer's passive ability should be quite a bit. So that's always a really nice thing. And you'll notice we'll have a full debuff bar pretty much the whole fight, because Eris is in a toxic set, and Eris in a toxic set is 100% an excellent way to go. But this is something that I wasn't really expecting, and realized partway through is that, or actually when I was testing a run with Fane, is that we're kind of at risk of over debuffing the boss, putting too many poisons out there, and by doing that, blocking some of the other debuffs that we need to put on the boss. So that is certainly something to consider, right? Like I said, I built up a Fane, and I think if I was going to run this with Fane full time, I would actually take Eris out of a toxic set and just let Fane put up poisons along with Kalvalax, and having the two of them do that job, because remember, Kalvalax can extend the duration of those debuffs. It's not a perfect solution, honestly. I doubt we would ever have a full debuff bar that way, or very rarely, but I feel like when we drop decreased defense, when we drop the weakened debuff, because the debuff bar is already filled, that's actually more impactful and more negative than not having a full debuff bar of poison. So there is a little bit of a give and take here, but you can see Geomancer, Kalvalax, they do a really good job, as we're doing well over 1 million a turn. So anyway, I'll let this, I'm going to let this run. We'll pick it up towards the end of this run, probably around turn 40, and see what kind of damage we do. I honestly don't know, as I haven't run this yet, but I think it's pretty safe to say that we're going to hit that 2-key Ultra Nightmare, 1-key Nightmare mark, which is the goal of this takeover. There you go, 57 million. That's not too far off of a 1-key. Obviously, it's a big gap that we have to make up here, but as we continue to improve some damage, as we continue to optimize the champions that we're bringing in, and what we're, I guess, how to focus the the stats that we're putting on them and stuff, like making sure that we're balanced, we're not overfilling the debuff bar, things like that. We're going to get better results, right? I don't have. In fact, this is actually really important. I don't have masteries on 2 champions. I don't have it on here. Let's look at the champions. You're going to understand exactly why, being as short as we are currently isn't as big of a deal. So as I said, 57 million is actually not as low as you might think it is, and we're not that far off of a 1-key. And one of the big parts is I don't have masteries on all of my champions here, or all of his champions here, Grim Reapers. We look at Demytha, right? You can see how I built her out. I built her actually for sustain and survivability, because looking at the account, there are definitely some areas where we still need to grow. And I figured Demytha is going to be useful for that. So I built her more as a sustain champion. This way, she's still going to be valuable and somebody that you could bring into things like Hydra or one of the hard dungeons and have her still survive in those. She's not a big damage dealer anyway, so we're not really losing a lot here. 100% crit rate would be nice, but I didn't think we'd be able to do it at these speeds anyway, so I went the other direction with that. But we still don't have War Master. We don't have that final mastery, and that makes a huge difference. That's probably going to add somewhere between 1 to 3 million extra damage on the squad. Just like that with the Mytha, you'll notice Eris here. I do have in a toxic set, and that toxic set is both advantageous but also kind of problematic. Obviously, if we overfill the debuff bar, then we miss out on things like decreased defense, weaken that we really, really need, or in the case of having Geo on this team, that HP burn. It's really important that we don't overfill the debuff bar to have that happen to us. I don't think that happened in this run with Eris, and I don't anticipate it to happen with Geomancer on the team. But if we take out Geomancer and bring somebody else in, I think that is a fairly likely scenario. So that is something that we would want to be aware of and kind of pay attention to as the runs go, because obviously that's going to have a major impact on our damage. She also has 0 masteries, and I mean 0 masteries. So getting her built out a little bit better wouldn't hurt at all, right? We could put things like Sniper, like Master Hexer on her for the toxic and extend the duration of those poisons and make them more common, or not. With Kalvalax on the team, we probably don't even need to do that, in all truth. For my team, the myth food that I run actually on my own account, I have that with Eris, and that's obviously important just to be able to extend the duration of that, her being my only poisoner on that team. Here, because we have additional poisoners in Kalvalax, it's not nearly as necessary. But yeah, 268 speed. I just have her speed tuned within everybody. She's level 1, so there's a lot of room to grow with Eris. I would imagine we could add anywhere between 1 to 4 million extra damage, not just mastering her, but leveling her up as well, because she gets so many extra attacks every turn. I think that would definitely we could do a lot more damage just with that alone. And then if we look at Geomancer here, right, most of these champions I have in some combination of perception and accuracy, when I need it for him and Kalvalax, but also kind of like mixed sets. We just want to get to what we can stat wise. But you can see that 173 speed is pretty much the minimum with this whole squad. We do have the right accuracy, as much crit damage as I could put on an attack with 100% crit rate. These numbers for me on my account would be very low, but on this account, I think are actually pretty darn high and a pretty darn good spot to be at. So upgrading the Great Hall will do a lot for the damage of the squad. Obviously, upgrading the gear will as well. We have Seeker in here. Seeker, I have at 190 speed, and this is pretty much the bottom. I think go down 1 speed or so. But again, it's all the speeds of these champions in this particular build. Any myth food team, they're going to be pretty tied to each other. So if I change the speeds of one champion, I need to check and make sure I don't then have to change the speeds of another one. That's always really important. Seeker, though, 4,000 attack is actually a really good number for a Seeker team, a Seeker build, and 220 crit damage is pretty solid as well. He can be a very significant damage dealer for you. You do not want to neglect his damage. And then very last, we have Kalvalax. Kalvalax, 202 speed. This is actually on the faster side of things. We could definitely go down a little bit, but good crit damage, good crit rate, good attack. I actually really like this build. And there's definitely some room still to grow with some of this account, as I haven't rolled everything on these champions. As always, I want to make sure I get to the speed, make sure that the run works, and then we can roll the last pieces of stuff as silver provides. There's still silver on this account to do that, but I also know he's going to need to remake some champions that I might have destroyed along the way. And so part of that process is going to be adding, he's going to need some of that silver for that as well. But when he has the time, he can roll up some of this gear and get even better results from these champs. So as you can see, this myth food team, but using Kalvalax and Geomancer, is definitely a very viable alternative way to go about it. Now, you don't have to use Geomancer. Obviously, any damage dealer can work in this, but the big thing is just having a champion in that lead spot with a nice aura for you. That helps a lot to make these speeds. The Mytha was like 300 speeds in this comp with that speed aura, so you can only imagine what it'd be like without that. That can be very daunting and hard for people to do. And so it just makes sense, if you have it, to use somebody like a Fushan, like a Kalvalax, to give you that speed aura and that damage boost, which I think is going to be pretty important. So anyway, that's the team. That was the build. I had a lot of fun building it. I think Grim Reaper is going to be very happy with the result we got him. And so that's it. That's the Clan Boss team. That's it, guys. That's what we do out here. So anyway, just an alternative to that, making sure that you guys can see that there are alternate champions you can bring in to do these builds, and they can be very successful when you do. So if you guys want account work, don't forget to check out the website, and we offer a bunch of different stuff on there. And so we'll be more than happy to help you out. But yeah, that's all we got, guys. So till next we meet on the Deadwood Jedi.